Oh no, baby, what is you doing? It is now being stated that Shakur Stevenson versus Cordina. I know. Don't shoot the messenger. It is not my fault. It ain't my fault. Did I do that? It ain't my fault. It is now being reported that Shakur Stevenson versus Cordina, listen carefully, will be a pay-per-view on DAZN. Nasty dog. Nasty work. So let's go into the particulars and get it cracking. You guys see it on your screen. Shout out to Dan the Boxing Man, and also credit to Brunch Boxing on Twitter. X, whatever you want to call it. So they are reporting that Shakur Stevenson is to headline his first pay-per-view October 12th, and then Better Bia versus Bivol fight will happen after on ESPN Plus. Once again, Shakur Stevenson to headline his portion of the card and down, presumably, on the DAZN pay-per-view. So the Cordina fight. Now, I did peruse through the comment section, and there seems to be some confusion. There seems to be a lot of confusion about what was stated. There's a lot of confusion in the comment section I've seen where people were basically confused. They're like, oh, this is 2 pay-per-views, and I don't know. Some people's comprehension skills struggle. Again, let me read it again. Shakur Stevenson to headline his first pay-per-view October 12th. Better Bia Bivol will happen after on ESPN Plus. So I will keep you guys updated on this, but the reason it does sound believable and sound true is because this is how DAZN's been operating. After coming in the game and stating that pay-per-view was dead and putting out commercials saying bye-bye pay-per-view and this is the death of pay-per-view, they succumbed. And they couldn't continue and deliver what they promised, which is a boxing world free of pay-per-view. And I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that because I've already spent years talking about the DAZN curse and how dumb a play that truly was. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. DAZN came in the game. It's cool to innovate. At times, it works. Like Netflix kind of took over Blockbuster Video's lane. So sometimes it does work. But it also takes the right timing, the right strategy. It got to make sense. And most importantly, got to resonate with the people and the buyers and the consumer, right? You can't just do whatever you want. So the public has spoken. The model was broken. It didn't work. So ultimately, they had to give in and start doing pay-per-views anyway. But so the hypocrisy and not delivering what you promised, that's always going to be a stain on DAZN's jacket. And I'm always going to bring it up every time I get an opportunity to, because that was your mission statement. Don't get mad at BOXINGEGO for holding you to what you said you could do or would do. So that's that. But even worse, now we're talking about fights like Day of Reckoning card and Shakur Stevenson Cordina being on pay-per-view. Listen, it's a god-awful fight. I don't like the fight. Why would that be on pay-per-view? Please tell me. Like, seriously, why would that be a pay-per-view deal? I really have no words because it's pretty stupid. Nobody requested this fight. You guys can make all the excuses in the world like, oh, Shakur couldn't find anybody and everybody's ducking him, whatever. The point of the matter is in a world full of piracy and basically other things to do, your offering is Shakur Stevenson versus Cordina, coming off of a loss where he was stopped, and have the audacity to put that on DAZN pay-per-view. Embarrassing. It's truly, truly embarrassing. Now, again, back to the comprehension. Some people were confused, saying, like, how are you going to offer 2 pay-per-views? Listen, it says Shakur Stevenson versus Cordina. So for whatever reason, and I'll give my thoughts on it in a second, but for whatever reason, they're kind of splitting this between 2 platforms, right? And to be honest, the other reason why this definitely sounds true to me is because, if I'm not mistaken, Beterbiev versus Bivol was already slated to take place. But just like Fury and Usyk, an injury came about, and then the fight, I think Usyk Fury was supposed to fight in February, and then you had Beterbiev and Bivol. They were supposed to fight, I want to say in June or something. But through injury suffered in training camp on behalf of Beterbiev, the fight ended up getting pushed back and postponed, much like Fury versus Usyk. So during that process, you had other fights happen or whatnot, and Beterbiev had to recover. So as a result, we're getting the fight when we're getting it. But if I'm not mistaken, when the fight was initially scheduled, this is how they outlined the pay-per-view as well. You know, it didn't have, of course, Shakur Stevenson on it at that time because he wasn't a free agent. He was still contracted with his final fight with Top Rank. But they had the structure the same way, where it was like half on ESPN Plus, half on DAZN or whatever. And my best bet and guess regarding that is, this is what happens when you don't do things in-house. And I told you the problems that come with this, but you guys were like, oh, Riyadh season, oh, Turkey saving boxing, oh, Eddie Hearn, oh, Boxing Ego, give it a chance, you're hating. This is the problem. When you have so many different promoters involved, then everybody wants it to be fair for them. So when you have Crawford Madrimov and your co-main event is better, or your co-feature with Pitbull and Rayo, in the public's mind, is low-key better than the main event, that's kind of a problem. And your co-feature was 2 PBC fighters. But then you also had Bacoli, which is a boxer fighter from the UK, and a fighter in Jared Anderson, Big Baby Anderson, who's with Top Rank. And then Crawford, who works with Turkey, kind of free agency. And then Madrimov, who works with Eddie Hearn. So the problem is you have all of these different entities coming together for a card, and the boxing fans, in their mind, they're looking at this as like, oh, this is a great thing, but it's too many hands in the cookie jar, right? You got so many different parties involved that it becomes more convoluted, if you will, right? And that's why I think this is happening. Beterbiev has more belts than Bivol, and he's with Top Rank in ESPN. So they probably likely worked out a deal like, hey, we're offering up, let's say, 3 of the 4 belts, and Bivol's bringing 1 belt to the equation. So we feel this fight should be an ESPN Plus deal for the main event for Undisputed Beterbiev Bivol, because we're bringing the most to the potluck, right? Imagine going to a potluck, you bring the chips, the dip, the drinks, and a main dish and napkins and barbecue. You know, you bought all this stuff to potluck, you definitely get to eat. And I think that's what happened here. I truly believe that, you know, they just worked out the deal, because the main, let's be real, Beterbiev Bivol is, out of the whole card, that's the main fight that people really want to see, right? Because it's an actual good fight. Shakur, Cordina coming off a loss and moving up in weight, that's just extra. So basically, it sounds like the deal that they orchestrated was, okay, DAZN, you can have these fights and broadcast that as your own pay-per-view, but then for the viewership, we want the prime viewership for the main event, which is the steak, you know what I mean, the main course. Beterbiev and Bivol would people are probably showing up for that card for, that's going to be on ESPN Plus, and let them get the viewership. So it sounds stupid, to be honest. It sounds stupid because, one, they're putting the fight in Saudi Arabia, and it's going to come on in America at an inopportune time. So you're trying to do too many things, if you will. You're trying to build an American guy that has a 2-fight deal with Eddie Hearn, Shakur Stevenson, and then you're taking him out of his element, right? I watch a lot of like Animal Planet, National Geographics, things like that. I like nature, you know? And the thing is, you can't remove a wild animal from its habitat and then just dump them off somewhere where, you know, maybe certain things that the animal eats is sparse, and that will do something to the population because now they can't thrive. The animal can't thrive because you basically uprooted them from their natural habitat and just put them somewhere else where the environment is not an environment where that species can thrive, right? That's basically what's happening here. You have an American guy with a name in Shakur Stevenson who in goal wants to fight Tank. You're putting him in Saudi Arabia, so his fight comes on to the point where this doesn't affect me because I'm BOXINGEGO. I'm my own boss. I wake up when I want. I make videos about what I want. This is my channel. I have full 100% ownership. So I'm not saying for me, but I speak for boxing. And like I often do, I'm the Robin Hood of boxing, right? Shakur, you're uprooting him and taking him to the kingdom, and then he's going to be fighting at 2:30 Pacific Standard Time, where a lot of people in America who have jobs, they're not going to be able to watch that. How can you? Even if you have banker hours, you're not going to be available at 2-3 p.m. with banker hours in America. So it's just like, what's the point of this? And then now, like another thing I noticed is when you offer something to the public, you have to make it as convenient as possible. That's it. People are lazy, especially now with TikToks, and, you know, attention spans are shorter, and you got to make things almost like foolproof, dummy proof, if you really want people to do it. That's what I've noticed. For example, let's say, you know, you're telling people for the Shakur card that they got to watch it on one platform, and then for the main event, they got to switch to another platform. That's just an additional step. No other show really does that. Like occasionally, let's say Amazon Prime, if you want to watch the free prelims, you can watch it on YouTube. Then you got to go to the app for the main event. That's pretty standard. But here's the kicker. You can watch the whole card on Amazon Prime if you bought it. So I think that's just the YouTube prelims, as I like to call them. That's just incentivizing or getting maybe some last minute buyers to convert to the undercard and like get them to convert to buying the card, you know, and showing them, oh, I didn't know this was on, things like that. This is different. You're putting Shakur on pay-per-view versus a heinous fight that no one really wants to see, and then you're telling people to switch over to a completely different app. This is just like pretty senseless indeed. Imagine this. I'm the best at this. I'm the best in the business, and it's not even close. I keep showing you my greatness. I keep showing you excellence, and I'll give you an analogy to help you put this in perspective. You know how Marvel comic book movies, oftentimes have the end credit? Imagine if you watch the full Deadpool versus Wolverine and there's an end credit, and then after the movie, the credits are rolling, and then it tells you to go to a different movie theater to see the end credit. So you watch the whole movie, Deadpool versus Wolverine, in theater A, and then once that movie's over, to see the end credit, you got to go to theater B. That would just be inconvenient. Some people might just, I got to use the bathroom and just leave or something like that, because you're uprooting them and making them leave. That's kind of what they're doing here. You watch the whole Shakur Cordina below, that fight and below, on DAZN pay-per-view, and then you're supposed to switch over and then go to ESPN Plus, which requires a subscription. Now, to explain that, because some people didn't comprehend it, ESPN Plus is its own app, which requires a subscription. So technically, you're not doing two pay-per-views, but it's two different costs. You have to either have an ESPN Plus membership, and if you didn't, then you would be paying for at least a month membership or whatever to watch the Better Be of Beevil. And then to watch the DAZN portion, you would have to pay for that. So it's not necessarily two pay-per-views, but then technically, if you don't own DAZN, you would have to pay not a pay-per-view, but you would have to pay for a DAZN subscription, or excuse me, an ESPN Plus subscription, right? So to me, that's just too much work for a card like this. It's not like Mayweather Pacquiao or something that we're talking about to be doing all this extra stuff. So they definitely haven't worked all the kinks out, in my opinion. If anything changes, I will keep you guys advised. But this is one of the pitfalls of having so many people involved in to make your fight. You got to split it up, and like it's too much. That's too much. And then Shakur is already fighting a fight that nobody even wants to see. So for it to be pay-per-view, I don't care. The undercard is not strong enough to me to have Shakur headlining his portion on DAZN pay-per-view. You guys let me know what you feel in the comment section, but this sounds very, very foolish to me. And lastly, I'll just say, I blame y'all. The fans were like, Turkey is saving boxing. Turkey has endless money. Riyadh season, they don't care about losses. If that was absolutely true, then why put this on pay-per-view? Why not just put the whole thing on ESPN Plus? Why not put it on pay-per-view? Why was Crawford Madrimov pay-per-view? Why was the Day of Reckoning pay-per-view? Fury versus Usyk pay-per-view? Shakur versus Cordina pay-per-view? Joshua Ngannou, Fury Ngannou. Why are all these fights pay-per-view if Turkey is saving boxing and supposed to have endless bankroll? Why are we doing so many pay-per-views, but then let PBC put Canelo versus Berlanga on pay-per-view with Danny Garcia and Edeslani Lara, with Caleb Plant, with Rolly on the card, and then the usual suspects, the haters, they complain about PBC doing so many pay-per-views, but then they say, oh, I love this idea and Riyadh season saved boxing. I don't agree. I don't agree. And I think, it just goes without saying, Canelo versus really anybody is a more justifiable pay-per-view than Shakur versus a guy moving up in weight and coming off of a loss. That's just common sense. So people hating on Canelo Berlanga, yeah, he's not the number one pick. People, of course, want David Benavidez, but Berlanga's bigger. He's supposed to be a knockout artist, and he's strong, and he's undefeated, and he's doing his part as the B-side to talk up the fight and talking about knocking out Canelo, and it's Mexican Independence Day weekend. So, again, from a business perspective, that's still going to make more sense. Canelo is Canelo, Mexican Independence Day, Vegas. And then here's the other thing. Speaking of Riyadh season, they said they were going to eat Canelo, and they have a competing card at the same time, the same date in the same city. And to get in the building, the tickets were like $3,000. Now they cut the tickets down to $750. So what's up with the big price slashing from Riyadh season? Why were you high charging, price gouging the fans? And then you said you're going to eat Canelo, but you're having to shave the ticket prices down because nobody was copping them. So again, you guys can say whatever you want about Riyadh season, but enjoy Shakur versus Cordina coming off a loss and a stoppage on pay-per-view.